Welcome back to a special episode of Monday Night, where it is April Fool's Day, everybody. You know, I can't say that I am a huge celebrator of April Fool's Day. I'm not someone who plays big practical jokes on April Fool's Day, but in general, I am someone who likes to joke around and mess with people. I'm the kind of butthead who would like hide somewhere in the house and jump out at you, even if you tell me not to. Most memorably though, these girls will probably hate me for it, but I used to live with two ladies I grew up with, and we lived out in an old farmhouse together. And when they were moving in and painting, one of their moms said that they saw a ghost in the house. And this house was a house that was in our family, or in my family, and knew that no one had passed away in it. So I felt confident the house was not haunted, but they insisted that they had seen a spirit. And you know, maybe they did, but it made me at that young age want to mess with them and say, oh, well, here, I'll give you a ghost. And with me working second shift proceedingly over the next several weeks, I slowly started to open up cabinets in the middle of the night and just leave them open. We had bar stools in the pantry, would start to just kind of slide them out randomly, never say anything, and no one said anything for quite some time, but I was slowly escalating, and it accumulated to one night where I opened everything up, stacked the bar stools, and that's when I was woke up in the morning to the ladies having a little bit of a meltdown. And later that day, they ended up discovering that it was me behind it. But yeah, so I like practical jokes. I like jokes nonetheless. So, you know, like I've said earlier, I love holiday horror, an excuse to watch any kind of, you know, silly movie on a holiday or a special event like graduation, birthdays, weddings, whatever it might be. So April Fool's Day is no exception. And you know, there is the classic April Fool's Day self-titled movie from Paramount Pictures, but you know, I actually just watched that last year with and you know, I like to kind of switch it up, especially if there's different movies for a holiday. You know, I don't want to watch the same thing maybe all the time, so it's kind of fresh, especially because I find April Fool's Day funny, as it should be. And if I don't watch it all the time, when I do go to watch it, I actually still laugh at it. So, but this year, I kicked it off with Slaughter High. Now, you might wonder why Slaughter High from 1986 would be my pick, but it actually came out the same time or close to the same time as April Fool's Day, and it was a foreign release movie and was originally going to be titled April Fool's Day, but when being released in the States, they did have to change the title to Slaughter High. So this is a slasher movie with a revenge premise, to where we have a group of young punks picking on one individual, Marty, and they're really kind of ruthless. I will say some of their antics kind of remind me of some of my friends in high school. Not necessarily bullying kids, but more of like being some punks towards the teachers and driving the teachers crazy, being pulled out of class and lined up in the hall to like, we're not going to take your crap. But that's what these kids were doing with their gym teacher. I thought it was funny throwing the brick through the window. I could have hurt my face, coach. But they're like really ruthless to this kid, Marty. They're playing pranks on him. And it just so happens they're doing this on April Fool's Day, which is also Marty's birthday. he not only thinks he's going to get some action to where they chant an old Wendy's slogan, "Where's the beef?" at him, but they also cause a disaster in the chemistry lab. And I will say, this guy Marty, he is just so gullible. Like, I mean, why would you trust these guys at all? But nonetheless, he is disfigured, and years later, there is a class reunion thrown at their old high school. And after a night of partying, when it's just the group of, punks, things start to go bad. And I will say, I love the setting of this movie. Apparently, this was an old asylum where, music videos and whatnot have been shot at before. But they used it for a high school. I think it was really fitting and just had a real eerie, vibe to it. Growing up in the 90s, I played basketball, and we used to travel to a lot of old county schools, and we played in some old creepy buildings and like on the weekend. So being in like an old eerie, middle school, high school, on like a Saturday, and it kind of reminded me of some of those buildings watching this movie. And I love old abandoned whatevers. So there's some real cool shots of just like down hallways where it kind of lingers, and I love when they're setting a mood like that. So also we have Harry Manfredini doing the music and sound for this, and that is our man behind Friday the 13th 1 through part 5. So we actually hear some of the musical stings and backdrops from Friday the 13th if you're familiar with the score. So that's fun, but he does also change it up and apparently worked on the main theme song for this movie as well, which I find really catching. Even though they are playing it throughout the movie, I'm cool with it. I like it. So, but yes, our students, our group of kids are knocked off one by one through means of practical jokes, and they're all practical effects. We actually have some really cool deaths in here. We do have some eye trauma. We have death by lawnmower. We have some electrified bed action. Just some really cool stuff. I really enjoy this movie. And of course, it does star our beloved Caroline Munro, who was a Hammer horror queen back in the 70s. And we have talked about her before on this show via The Black Cat. So I would have to say, really, really check this movie out if you enjoy a good slasher movie, something fun to watch on the holidays, especially if you watch April Fool's Day and you're looking for an excuse to watch something else. This is definitely an April Fool's Day movie. There's a nice calendar shot of the day, and they do say April Fool's Day in it a couple times as well, while not also only being our killer's birthday. So again, check this movie out. I would have to give this one 7 out of 10 jesters. And I got a real cool Blu-ray copy from Vestron Video. And I would have to say, this is actually the first Vestron Video Collector's Edition movie I got years ago. It was when I was first starting to branch out into getting other boutique labels and things like that. So really glad to have this one. Has a cool slipcover, and overall just a fun holiday movie. We get into our last movie of the evening, and that it is a special occasion. Wanted to give a few recommendations. And first off, the movie that was mentioned earlier, April Fool's Day. This movie's from 1986, and I have a copy from Scream Factory on Blu-ray. It's a fun movie, full of practical jokes, some memorable 80s, cast members, and, fun soundtrack, does have some laughs in it. And although there is kind of like a mystery going on, I think it does have some good rewatch value. As I mentioned, I do tend to watch it frequently. After that, kind of switch it up to some movies that aren't necessarily horror, but I do have in my collection, and they were put out through Vinegar Syndrome, which restores old, lost, forgotten, and classic films. So this is 1991's Drop Dead Fred. Now, the ladies I mentioned earlier, we used to watch this movie all the time. It is hilarious. It's full of playing jokes, mainly on Phoebe Cates' mother. And, you know, it's delightful snot face. So check it out. And last recommendation is from 1998's Dirty Work, starring our late Norm Macdonald. This is a pretty funny movie. It has, you know, real dry sense of humor if you're familiar with Norm, and it's based on a revenge company to where if somebody makes you mad, screws you over, cheats on you, whatever, want to get back at them, you call these guys up and they'll play pranks on you or on those people, you know, like stuffing all of their drawers in their house full of fish, because, you know, sticking things full of fish solves everything. Yeah. Dirty Work. Check it out, guys. It is pretty funny. So, and then our movie of the evening is from 1988's Pledge Night. Now, this one is not centered around April Fool's Day, but it is full of like fraternity pranks. There is a lot of jokes in this, and then even once the killing gets started, there's a lot of killing jokes going on. You know, I will say I never was really like a guy's guy. I'm me. But like the idea of a fraternity just never spoke to me. Not something I'm a part of. Yeah, and then like the hazing, and you hear horror stories in real life. It's just like, what the hell? And even some of the stuff in this, it's just like, yeah, you know, like that was more acceptable back in the 80s. Stuff that like would not fly today. But, you know, some of it is a little comical. And then we get into basically a revenge killing of somebody who was killed in a prank going wrong and their spirit coming back. You know, there are some really bloody deaths in this. You know, some quirky taglines. The killer is a little goofy, but once it's like fully revealed, which it is a sweet reveal in my opinion, especially if you're a fan of the Italian movie Demons, you'll know what I'm talking about. But, you know, he has some cool like melted face makeup. You know, Sid, not a bad killer. It is kind of fun once he starts like hunting down some of the people. There's like a ridiculous cat and mouse scene in the fraternity at one point with them. And I will say how it wraps up, it's a little goofy. If you've watched it, you'll know what I'm saying. But at the same time, it was a good watch, and this was something I was looking for, you know, a different watch, something that had like some, like a practical joke theme to it, but was also different for today. And I thought Pledge Night fit the bill perfectly. So, you know, I have my copy from Vinegar Syndrome, nice Blu-ray, and I would have to say, give this movie a watch. I overall would give this, you know, maybe 6 out of 10 batches of Sid. So, yeah, watch this movie, guys. And, you know, in the comments, if you've seen any of these films before or you end up checking any of them out, let me know what you think, especially on the effects. You know, I actually found both of these movies had really good effects in it. You know, just because they're coming from the 80s does not mean they have good effects by any means. But, you know, if you liked them or you've had a favorite kill, drop a comment, let me know what you thought. So be sure to stay tuned for a future Monday night, and until then, everyone, stay spooky.